Yeah, thanks for having me here. My name is Rainer Hasenzagel. I'm a principal product manager at Citrix for the access security. The end user demo comes a bit later. I'm just switching over to the admin demo. So what we want to provide is, like Shivan already mentioned, we want to provide a solution where the admins, the company, has it can have it easily switch from a legacy VPN where probably everything is open to a zero trust based approach. With that, we can set our secure private access solution into a learning mode. So what does learning mode mean? The admins configure like an application and for internal access where they define some subnets. Then they onboard their key users, which representing different roles in their admin, in their organization, and just discover what they do. Like here we see they serve to espn.com. Maybe they are in the social media and in the sports social media and discover something. And it's too fast for me, sorry. And then they have the ability to just select this ESPN, the main domain which they were accessing. Let's go maybe just the 10 seconds back or the 20 seconds back. So they can then select it, and based on that, they can say, okay, I want to now create an application because I know these key users are using ESPN for their daily work. So I'll select the top domain and also can add embedded domains to provide a better security, because based on that domains, we can then apply our enhanced security controls, our DLP controls. So we can either select the top domain and create a new application, or if we already have an existing application, we can just select the embedded domains based on the top domain and say, okay, let's add this one to an already existing application because we didn't protect that application well before. So that's just on how we are discovering all the applications. And as I didn't show here on how we create or define the applications, I'll do that in the next step. This is again I can select subdomains and add it to an existing application, and now I'll move over to the app configuration. Within the app configuration, I just say, okay, we have a lot of applications here. I'll say, okay, I need a new application. As you can see, we have a lot of pre-configured templates already. So for example, here I'm searching for Salesforce. I could use the template, but in this case, I want to just skip the templates and configure an internal application. Internal, why internal? We have to decide, is the application hosted outside, like I'll access this application directly, or is it inside? I'll access the application through our connector appliance or a NetScaler gateway. So then I select the application type. As we saw just, it could be a web application or a TCP/UDP application. I can specify an icon, I'll specify the name, I'll specify the category. I can pin it to the favorites in the workspace application. And then I'll also have the option for direct access. Direct access means I'm exposing this application to the public DNS, which means a user on an unmanaged device can simply insert the FQDN into their browser and direct access the application based on, for example, if he would say test.wwco, he can directly access it within the native browser. We can then also apply a single sign-on. Here we see Kerberos SAML and don't use SSO. This is because my tenant is configured for Azure AD login. So we can't do form-based authentication because we don't have a password available. And next is we select, because it's an internal application, the entry point. Where should the traffic be routed? In that case, I'll select the on-premise data center in London, our on-premise data center. So if I'm accessing this application, it would go directly to the connector appliance, which is deployed in the on-prem data center. And now, as we have created the applications, we want to have the access policies where we define the contextual access. I've now picked out one for the intranet. You see, when you create a policy, you can add multiple applications at once. It's not just I did this for one application now. I first select the scope, where I can say user for user-based access, based on groups, based on the user itself, or machine-based. For machine-based access, machine tunnel, where always on kicks in, which Shibam previously mentioned. We have also a lot of capabilities on the conditions. I had configured the device posture here, and it's too fast for me again. I had configured the device posture, but we can also, for example, drill it down to say, okay, the user is coming from a desktop, or the user is coming from a mobile device, or the user is coming from a specific workspace URL, like workspace URL is our entry point, which the user is accessing. We can have multiple, and based on that, we can also say, okay, let's make a condition out of that, or the network locations, geolocations, whatever. And then we define the access permissions. Like here, I say, okay, I do not want to allow strict access, because if the device is non-compliant, then I want to apply data leakage prevention controls. Like what I did here is I disabled the clipboard, I disabled download, printing, I inserted a watermark, which we see in the end user demo, and also I did anti-key logging. I enabled anti-key logging, the anti-key logging feature. And with that, all the informations are inserted. I also created a second one because I want to decide if it's a managed device and a compliant device, then I want to have a different rule set. So first I start with the restricted rules, and then I go in and say, okay, now let's say all is open. Why not? It's a managed device, everything is compliant. Perfect. As you can see, I have done this for a lot of applications. And after we have configured everything, we want to verify, is this really correct what I did? And so, as Shibam said, we have the policy modeling tool. I'll search for my user. As I did not specify any condition right now, the policy modeling tool thinks I'm an untrusted and non-compliant device. And this is why I get a lot of no access, allowed access only with restrictions. But once I specify the device posture is compliant, then you will see everything is changing. My whole access is changing. My access permissions are changing. Like, hey, wow, I have now access, direct access. That's cool. So the only thing, the PII page where I have social security numbers on it is always reducted. So we will redact the social security numbers. That's just for a secure purpose. Once we have verified everything, by the way, which I want to mention here again, we also have the user block list feature on that screen, which does mean in certain cases, if something accidentally happens, like a user calls in, hey, my device was stolen and I have some established connections, then yeah, okay, give it a call. We add the user to the block list, and immediately after we execute or add the user to this block list, all his connections are gone, are disconnected immediately. It's like a one click and close everything, close the door for him. And you can do that for a bunch of users. You can automate that. Everything is possible. Any questions so far on that? Nope.
I just have one. I'm assuming if you're able to block and control, it's not going to be SaaS-based because you can't control something going to a SaaS environment outside of your environment?
You're talking about if the user wants to access a SaaS application and I want to control that SaaS application access. Yes, I can do that, but I can only do that if the user is using, for example, our enterprise browser solution. Otherwise, it becomes hard because when he is using his native browser and, for example, has not installed our secure access agent, how should we know that he is now going to that?
Exactly, okay.
Yeah, so with our enterprise browser solution or with the secure access agent, and we have defined the application, that's not a problem. We can block that, yes.
I just had one quick question. And again, I don't want to get too granular into it, but it's just thinking back from years ago.
Mhm.
So like, let's say someone was let go from a company or an organization or offboarded. Is there a way that you could create like a script? Like, yeah, because I remember you were saying like in C here, like to set those policies to kill access and everything. But is there a way to like auto set it? Like, I guess when you're going through like an AD cleanup, right? Like every 30, 60, 90 days, is there something that can tie to which we now enter ID to tie it in? So then you could just automate it, and then maybe through API, just like instead of you going in and manually doing it, if you're just like, oh, this person we have to offboard them, and you could, take away the permissions for the device, take away their policy and access without doing it.
Great question. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, cool.
We have everything you see in this admin UI is also available as an API. So you can do that. You can automate everything through the API. Cool. Why not? And a lot of our customers already do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, then move on. So the next step is I want to touch upon what happens if someone calls in and says, hey, I have a problem, or my access suddenly is restricted, so I can't use my native browser anymore on my managed device. So with our Citrix monitor, I'll just search for my user who has access, and in that case, we see that he accessed exactly two internal applications. And let's look at, for example, on the finance app portal right now. So we see the user uses the Citrix Workspace app. In that case, he used the enterprise browser. We also see in the same topology view that he gets restricted access, and he was accessing the finance app. With all the information in here, we also see like these are the restrictions we applied and why the user is now restricted, because his device is no longer compliant. So with our continuous enforcement, we detected that a compliant device suddenly falls out of compliance, gets uncompliant, and in that case, we simply restrict access. And that's really like, if it's uncompliant, we restrict access. And we also enumerate all the applications that the user would have access to. So like in this case, we also see that the user has access to Office 365 with the current condition, because his device is uncompliant. He would also get restricted access, like we block downloads, we have anti-key logging protection enabled, watermarking, clipboard is blocked, watermarking is inserted. But the overall status above shows he would be allowed on the right. It's a green checkbox with allowed, because he has not accessed it yet. It's not an already established connection. It's just an enumerated app where he would have access to, but with the current condition, he would get restricted access.
Are there mechanisms for remediation or tying into remediation, like opening a ticket, because eventually a user's going to be like, why can't I access this app anymore?
Yeah.
And
you mean an automated remediation, like, or
either some kind of a message back to the end user, you just got kicked off this app because of XYZ, or to the help desk, it looks like this end user may have downloaded malware, we need to take action.
Yeah, we will see that exactly in the next end user demo.
Yeah, or if it's like, if it ties into like a third-party patching tool, like I don't know, just using example like Ninja One, it's just like laptops out of device or devices out of compliance because it hasn't been updated in like 3 months. Almost like something to let, like you said, the end user know and the help desk, like, hey, this is why it does it.
Or even like, yeah, when the user turns on their laptop for the day, let them know, like, you might want to update these 3 things before you try to access applications.
Because unfortunately, I don't see that stuff no more, but I'm just having all these flashes. Like I said, I wish this was something I had a few years ago. This would be pretty...
Great question. We don't provide the exact information yet, because that would, for example, let an attacker know what happened. But we provide the information to the end user that something happened to his device and it's no longer compliant. So based on the security, from my security thinking, I would not provide the exact reason why the device is now incompliant. But what I do in the end user demo, I did configure, for example, the device check on the Windows Defender side. If the service is running, it's compliant. And if it's not running, because to make it easy for the demonstration, I just simply turn it off. And we will see a few seconds later, the notification pops in and say, oh, your device is no longer compliant. Yeah, for any reason. Okay. So with that, this demo is done, and I'm switching. Yeah. So For the end user demo, I want to show two methods on how we can access. Shivam also touched on that. We have two methods like the Secure Access Agent, our Zero Trust Network Access Agent, and the Enterprise Browser. The Zero Trust Network Access Agent is basically on managed devices and provides the real network-based access, as I would call it. We can enforce the strict controls there. We have all the endpoint analysis clients already implemented in that client. So each of our agents has the endpoint scan implemented. So no longer you don't need to have multiple agents on one device. It's all one. So combined. And on the other side, the enterprise browser is really here if you want to say like, I'm modernizing my applications. I want to get rid of all the legacy stuff like client server based. Okay, I only have web applications. So why do I need a Zero Trust Network Agent then? Just simple have a managed enterprise browser, which can be deployed on any device like managed or unmanaged. And even on unmanaged devices, you manage that enterprise browser. So with that, the enterprise browser allows us for a lot of the API controls, which we saw in the admin demo already, and provides us the flexibility to access all the applications in a secure manner on any device. Okay. So for the end user demo, as I said before, the device onboarding is really simple in our case. Like we have a new user, it's your use case before, we have a new user, he is working 100% remote, so he gets a new device shipped. The device is pre-configured and already joined to Azure AD. He just uses his identity, which he got per email or whatever, wherever he did. So then he logs on for the first time using his Entra AD credentials. The next step, what he does is, because he already get pushed our Citrix Workspace app, he just simple logs on to that to the Citrix Workspace, to the Secure Private Access Store. Just simply connect. Before he even has to insert his credential, we check on the device posture and also apply software, additional software, which the admin says, okay, it's a managed device, you have to get additional software on it. So once that is done...
As they get additional software, are they quarantined into a specific space while they're getting that software?
Yeah, exactly. So like additional software could be, we will see it in a second, just come on, pop up. As we are on a managed device and the device push check says, okay, we are on a managed device, the additional software installer based on the admin configuration installs, for example, the Zero Trust Network Access, our CTNA agent. Meaning that we can control what will be installed, what version should be installed because of compliance checks internally. So the admins want to check a new software release before they roll it out. With the global app configuration service, which is built in our cloud services, and all our agents are communicating with that, we can really control what's happening in the Workspace app, what should happen in the Zero Trust Network agent, what controls, no, not controls, what features should be available in the enterprise browser in the end. Like, for example, I want to allow my users to have the developer mode, or I want to restrict it. I want to have the password manager enabled or not. Like all the controls which are available in the enterprise browser. By the way, our enterprise browser is based on the Chromium engine. So like everything what's available in Chromium, we can control that through the Global Access Configuration Service and a lot more. For example, which I will show you in a second, is like we are also controlling if the user logs onto the workspace, to the Citrix Workspace app, then we can also say, okay, use it as a single sign-on because our workspace is configured for Entra ID. You have logged on to your device with Entra ID. Okay, let's do a single sign-on. But not just that. Let's also use this credential to establish the Zero Trust Network Access. So like the best user experience, one time log on at the Windows device, and then you're logged on to everything. And we use that also for single sign-on to all the SaaS applications or internal applications in the end.
I think Did you mean like when it's being actually logged to like a dedicated, network, so it's not going to access any
Yes.
corporate or anything, other asset? So I think let's try that again.
Sorry.
So while we're waiting for this to actually, when we do have to restart the device in order to actually get that agent updated. So while we're doing that, we pull that agent update or whatever update.
Mm-hmm.
Are we being quarantined from a network perspective, or are we still connected to the corporate network?
At this time, you're not connected to a corporate network. It's just the onboarding process, the first onboarding process where we set up the device for access. So you're not going to connect it right now to any internal network, to a data center, whatever. You're just connected to the internet.
Just making sure. So I already have the agent installed. I just, I was on vacation for 2 months.
Okay, got it.
And I came back.
No, I got it.
Turning on my laptop.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to connect. So while I'm doing that, does it restrict me from connecting to any corporate applications?
In case the device is outdated, yes, you will first get the update pushed, and then you can connect it, because we want to ensure that you have the latest updates on your device to really stay secure before you're allowed to connecting. So it's the same process like here. We did the initial installation. If you were on vacation and some updates were pushed from the company, you first get the pushed updates, and then you get connected.
Now I have a stupid. I do. I think it's a stupid question.
It's a design. It's a design.
I have a stupid question. So because I'm seeing here, obviously we need to restart it, and just generally, historically, you have a fleet of machines or whatever.
Yeah.
And through Enter ID or GPO, you can, every time there's a new agent update, it just pushes it. Is this something that can be done in that dashboard now? Like, does it have its own granularness, or how does that work? Like, is there two places that you can get an updated version? Like, let's say he was to piggyback off what he was saying, you're out of the office for a month and a half, 2 months. Your agent needs to be updated, so a bunch of wonky stuff doesn't start happening. Will that auto update, or is that something that would still be configured on just the IT administrator side, with Enter ID or however you?
It would auto update.
Okay.
Yeah, it would auto update because the setting that the push comes from our global access configuration service, and the initial connect is always to say, okay, is there something new for my device? Is there a new configuration, a new software that I need to install because it's mandatory? Then I'll push it. The restart, by the way, that's just something we've implemented because of, I would say, Windows reasons. Like Windows always likes if you install a new software, you should restart. Yeah, but as we can see, really in the next few seconds, it's not really necessary to restart, because we saw the single sign-on already happened, and in a few seconds,
that's cool.
The secure access agent pops up and says, "Oh, single sign-on for the Workspace app succeeded, and we are now establishing your connection." So a restart is not necessarily needed, right? But just to make sure we present it. And I now did a restart for some reason. So that's why I think. So now the user has restarted and opens up the Workspace app. It's the same process like we saw before. Single sign-on happens, the secure access agent comes up, single sign-on is done there as well, in the left bottom corner. And we see all the applications which are configured and which the user is allowed to. He could access it right out of the Workspace app, but we're on a managed device, so we can leverage the local, the native browser as well. In this case, I just open up the Edge and go to portaloffice365.com to my Office 365 apps. And as you can see, single sign-on is happening, but that's just because the device is already connected to Microsoft Entra. But what if I'll want to connect to an internal app like the finance app, which we saw before? By the way, this is because I'm using an incognito mode. So it's not, the connection will happen. So we're using the native browser, we can access everything internally which is allowed for the user. And also, for example, SMP shares.
I was going to ask that, but I just let me wait.
So
that's cool.
Single sign-on to SMP shares as well.
Well, remember, it's like there are dual two identities running in parallel. You're not leveraging the one that is relevant for, the service or the appliance.
Right.
This is like your built-in credential.
Exactly. This is like because the user logged on with the Entra ID, so the on-premise IDs are synced to Entra,
Yeah.
and we're leveraging this. This is correct.
They
But
almost work in like parallel.
Yeah.
Per se.
it's parallel, right? But you need the zero trust network agent, otherwise you can't connect directly. So that's the case now. We have the
Should have had this 6 years ago.
we now we have the now we have the connection to our S&P shares, whatever. In that case, I'm just showing the finance share because this is a finance guy. He could open up all the available documents there, could simply start using it. He could also, for example, if he's allowed to open up or connect to a SQL server and do some queries. So, and the next step is, as I shared before, I want to make the device now non-compliant. So I turned off the Windows Defender security. Just wait a few seconds to notify all our services, and we will see. Right now, it should come up. It's always the waiting on a demo. I don't like that. So
It's a demo time dilation effect.
yeah, but as you can see, the device is non-compliant. We have an alert. So for already established, just a second, for already established connections, we will keep the connection alive for 5 minutes. So you can save your existing work, like Word documents, whatever, and say, okay, it's safe, and then the connection can stop. You had a question?
Is UAC like fully enabled
Yes.
on the OS?
This is this device where I captured everything. It's plain UAC. Everything is enabled here. Really everything. I can show you afterward.
Okay.
So next is, because I did stop the session, it's a non-compliant device. So we see that Finance WWKO.net, which we were able to access before with a native browser, is no longer possible. We see the access denied message. So we really cut it off. No new connection can be established. Existing ones, like the S&P share, will be available for 5 minutes again. But as the user is aware and was told from the company, he could also leverage the inbuilt Citrix Enterprise browser if his device is non-compliant. So he will now go to the Workspace app or open up the Enterprise browser itself. I showed it using the Workspace app because it's a unified portal for us where we can access like virtual applications, virtual app, and also web and SaaS applications out of that one. So I'll open the Finance app again. As we can see, the Enterprise browser opens up now. And it has a Zero Trust Network Agent built in. Oops, what happened? I don't see anything. That's because of our browser-based controls, like the Finance app on a non-compliant device has anti-screen capturing enabled, which means I did a record of the device. I did a recording at this time. It's completely grayed out. You don't see anything at the recording. I'll probably see it on my screen, but on the recording, no. And if I would take a screenshot of my screen right now, I would also see the Finance app completely grayed out. That's one of the security controls we have built in. It's the same like anti-key logging. If you would have some malware on it, which would log the keystrokes, then this would all be scrambled in that application because it also has the restrictions enabled. And we can also look now, because the Finance app is grayed out, I can't show you that, but in here for the internal app, I'll see all the restrictions that are applied. So the user is well aware then what he is allowed to do if he's on a non-compliant device versus on a compliant device. So we have copy-paste restricted completely. We have downloads restricted. Anti-key logging is enabled, as I said, scrambled keystrokes. We have printing disabled, and we also have a watermark integrated, which we see here. So next would be I'm accessing Office 365 because I'm on a non-compliant device. So imagine this user uses now not the Office 365, the Microsoft Entra credentials. we are now using the credentials from the logon on the Workspace app. So like we are passing the Workspace app credentials through to the enterprise browser, and he uses the credentials for single sign-on to all the SaaS applications. Maybe it's a bit bad demo because this device is onboarded already, yes, but the enterprise browser does not use any credential from the local device. It really uses the credentials from the Workspace app. That's because of our security controls built in.
So that's interesting.
Mhm.
But like cookies or cache credentials of the browser
Mhm.
are not relevant just because we're using that dedicated browser?
Yeah, so the
Would I
enterprise
have a different behavior if I use like Chrome or Edge?
Yes. So if you already logged on to Microsoft Edge or Chrome and you have cache cookies or whatever like the credentials, we are not leveraging them in the enterprise browser. So our intent is to really encrypt all the browser cache, the downloaded files when you use our enterprise browser. So there is nothing shared between the OS and the enterprise browser. It's like a
Essentially, it's like a cache-less, browser.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like a sealed browser. Yeah. So we did the single sign-on. Next, what I'll try is, because downloads are restricted, I'll try to download my document at the bottom here. Yeah, I'll show again the restrictions. But the important thing is I want to download the document. And on the first view, it looks like it works, but then we'll get the pop-up notification, download has been restricted. So nothing is downloaded. It's really blocked. And what I wanted to show again then is like the SMB control, so that we really cut off all the previous connections. So I speeded up the demo a bit here. As we can see, the counter is slowing down, 30, 24, 5. And now I'll go back to the Windows Explorer. Hopefully, the user has already saved his work. So their device does not meet any requirements, so every connection is now cut off. And I'll try to access the finance app. It takes time, and we see the access denied. So after 5 minutes have passed, when the device moved from compliant to non-compliant, all connections are cut off. Nothing is available any longer. Yeah, that's it.
Does it
Okay.
you can just say no, and that's fine. But can you tell us if it's leveraging essentially GPOs in the back end?
Essentially GPOs in the backend. Could you elaborate a bit?
So you're blocking access to a network drive, right? After the time has passed. So yes, the agent in there is, not really taking over the operating system and is blocking my access, right?
Yeah. So what happens in the background is we are cutting the connection from the agent to our service. So we have two enforcement points. The first enforcement point for our security control and the Zero Trust Network Access Agent is on the device itself. We are checking, is the user allowed to access the resources somewhere? The second enforcement point is in our cloud, like the security broker, which is in our cloud. So for any reason, if the request passes through the device, because it still has not recognized that it's no longer allowed to pass any connection, then our security broker in the cloud will cut that off and say, you're no longer allowed. So it's we are not leveraging any security policies like Windows Defender Firewall, whatever. We are really controlling the traffic within the agent.
Okay. And lastly, this is just very concerning from my point of view in a sense of okay, if we lost connection, to that service, what happens? You're not able to check whether I'm allowed to access it or not.
Not able to check if that's right.
We assume really end of days type of outage, right?
Yeah.
I don't have access. Do you assume that assume that everyone does not have access and you block all services?
Probably, Shivam, can you help answering that?
So let's just say that there is an outage that prevents the agent from checking with the server whether I'm allowed to access a certain location. Okay? It's widespread. The organization doesn't have any access. So what happens? Do we like automatically get denied for whatever access to any resource that we're protecting?
Yes, I mean, if obviously you're saying that if the backend somehow is not reachable because of an outage,
Yes.
right? Which is one of the data centers not working.
Yeah.
That means, yes, there's possibilities in that case, though. It depends how you've set up your environment. Let's say if you have the same app available in another data center which is actually working, right? In that case, we have a capacity to instead route you to a backup failover
I
environment.
need to be proactive on that. I need to go and make a change.
You don't, as an end user, no. And as
No,
an
no,
admin,
as an admin,
I mean, you would have to configure it previously while
as a
configuring
failover.
as a failover resource location or as a failover data center.
So by design, the FQDN that my client is hitting is a floating point. It can go either way.
It can go either way. And the good part is that when you're actually accessing it the first time, it would do it in a performant way, which is to access it at the data center, which is the closest, instead of routing you to a DR. And obviously, we can set it up in a way that the DR is only touched when the primary one, which is the one that hosts the application, isn't reachable.
Because there's two layers in here. So there's the access. What was the name for it? The Citrix infrastructure piece in your first diagram. So client connects to Citrix infrastructure. Citrix infrastructure connects to a NetScaler. So that Citrix infrastructure piece failing, that's where the FQDN resides, and it'll fail over to another point of presence.
If the Citrix infrastructure, just to clarify, I think
The broker.
The broker.
The broker.
Yeah, in that case, we have different POPs, which is if I'm, let's say, in Europe, accessing from one of my closest POPs, which is near me, if that fails over, we switch over to the next closest POP.
Yeah.
We'd still have the access ongoing, still through your primary data center, though, and which means you're still getting the access, and that's not broken because we have a resilient environment with multiple POPs, but the service remains.
That sounds exactly like a reason why I'd want to be on the cloud rather than having this on my own data center.
100%.
But then, of course, you've still got to get back to the NetScaler device that's on premises close to your equipment, and that's where you pre-configure the failover.
Yep.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%. That's why we have the cloud environment,
Yeah.
the cloud solution. All right, Reina can take over.
That's why I did the demo on the cloud. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Kiran.
Awesome. Thank you, Reina. So that's just to wrap it up, before we wrap up, just a little bit, if you need more information about our products, definitely go visit our citrix.com website. Also follow us on LinkedIn. We're pretty active on there. You'll get updates on what's new and upcoming on the product. And then we also have an active community as well. So we have a lot of Citrix admins out there as well who are active on our community. So I think just to wrap up on the presentation today. So I think, as you'd have seen, really what we're offering is really a solution that delivers secure access for all users on any device to all applications on any infrastructure. That's really our North Star and what we're trying to do as a company. Just to hit on a few things, just the knowledge and experience, right? So we've built up the knowledge and experience, as you would have seen from my colleagues and in the product demos. We're not starting from scratch here. It's been a natural evolution for us from desktop virtualization, application virtualization, and also even from our application delivery and security is set us up nicely for the future. The other thing is just that single zero trust architecture, right? There's a lot of point solutions out there. Some are on-prem only, some are only cloud. You'll see more from us in this area, but definitely we feel like we're future-proofing our security architecture moving forward. And then really the big one is the faster time to value, right? A lot of customers are telling us, hey, I've got this thing, we've spent money on it, but we haven't deployed ZTNA widely within our environments. With our platform approach, we're giving our customers access to these technologies because we feel like all three are important to that secure application delivery. And so, hopefully what you saw today gives you an idea from an admin perspective how we can really help them to deploy ZTNA a lot faster, so they can realize the value and obviously keep up with the needs of.
So what's an average time, to deploy the solution?
Reina, do you want to answer that question? What's the
I
average
mean, obviously not for something that has, not for an organization with 2 applications and not one with, 1,500.
Or maybe what's the fastest time you've
I wouldn't say
seen?
fastest, let's go with average. What's a typical deployment, time frame for the solution?
For secure private access.
Yes.
So I would say the last proof of concept where I was part of, we had deployed the solution within 30 minutes because we had a set.
I'll pivot.
No,
So,
let
fully functional, like
let me explain why 30 minutes. So it was an already existing Citrix cloud customer. So we only had to deploy secure private access, which means connector appliance in their data center, and add some of the predefined applications. They gave us a list, like 5 applications, with some contextual access. It took us really not more than 30 minutes because the deployment of the connector appliance, which was done by a team of them, like they control the hypervisor, because the connector appliance is a virtual appliance. We gave it to them, say, please deploy it, give us the information on how we can access it. Then we paired the connector appliance with the Citrix Cloud tenant, and this took us, for example, like 10 minutes. 5 minutes to deploy, 5 minutes for the rest.
that also includes like SSO identities.
Yeah, because you just need to join the connector appliance using a service account one time to your local Active Directory, and this is really fast. If everything is open and you have...
But that's on the domain side, that's fine, but
So the reason why I say 30 minutes, really 30 minutes, is because we have a predefined POC guidance list. What you need to do before we come and deploy the things with you together. And this includes all the firewall rule sets, everything which has to be done before.
So this was the one and only one POC where people had completed that list before you arrived.
We had a lot of touch points with them before, and we really told them, please complete the list before we are...
But like I say, this is the one and only one where
No. We had a lot of... honestly, I'm working with the product now for 1.5 years, and I was part of a lot of POCs, and I would say 60 to 70% of all the customers where we gave that POC guide beforehand did really complete the configuration.
So great work on the authors of that guide of making it so approachable.
Yeah. So our sales guys are really working closely with the accounts. So that's the reason why they are doing and completing all the stuff beforehand.
So you would say on an average, even though you gave that to 60 or 70%, the average was 30 minutes for you to set that up? Or that was just that specific customer?
The average is 30 minutes to have it really up and running, yeah. If we're talking about the cloud service. If we're talking about the on-prem service, it usually takes longer because you have to install some software components, you have to join the devices, like you have to do some stuff on the NetScaler, which is obviously automated, but you have to do it and you have to cross-check. Does this, for example, or could it break something existing already in the NetScaler? So there is a bit more on manual work to do beforehand, but on a cloud deployment, 30 minutes are really common on the average. Yeah.
So I think probably that time, the time measurement is from POC to deployment, right? So obviously there's a time before that, which is getting to the POC. But definitely, I think once we get to the POC, and obviously, as I mentioned, very large enterprises we're talking to on a continuous basis, right? And so I think, get to that POC point, and then that's where the deployment comes in. But as I said, it's been successful so far. But great question. Thank you for asking. And that's a wrap. Any other questions for the team? I just want to take a few minutes just to thank Shivam and Reina. Hopefully you guys find the session informative and have a better idea of what we're doing here at Citrix.
I'm curious if you are looking at this as a way to sort of extend the value of the Citrix infrastructure to existing customers, or you feel like you can take this out and compete against the Palos, the Fortinets, the others who are also competing in SASE and ZTNA and win new customers?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think it's both, to be honest, because we do want to scale our existing customers, because why not? They have the infrastructure that's needed for them, and it's useful for them as well to be using their existing infrastructures like NetScalers, where in the cases such as on-prem, they don't need anything more to be added on that infrastructure level to be just starting on with what they already have and using an additional value service when it comes to accessing ZTNA-based backend applications. But we're also all the cloud. So, and we're adding in more features when it comes to having competition with other vendors by adding in features such as the enterprise browser, right? Something that a lot of these ZTNA providers do not have, which I think is that added value which we bring in through not only the browser, but the fact that it's all one unified platform where we surpass a lot of our competitors with the fact that you're getting access to not only those ZTNA-based backend applications through one unified platform, which is a workspace, but also your virtual desktops and VDIs, which we're already serving to our existing customers. So I think we're in both the spaces, given that we already have a large customer base with those existing infrastructures that can be enabled, and then the added value points of the enterprise browser and the unified platform that makes a lot of the difference, I feel.
So the flip side of that then is, if I'm not already an existing Citrix customer, what components do I need? Do I need to be VDI? It looks like I need Citrix Workspace if I want this, or what am I all in for if I'm going to get this?
Depending on what your use cases are, it starts with that. Let's say if you want to have, and we would suggest and sell the whole product as a platform, right? Mm-hmm. So we take in all in with giving you access to your backend VDIs and desktops, and as well as your backend web SaaS applications. And depending on if you're, let's say, you're coming in from the cloud side, all you would need is having profile what on your backend really exists, as long as you are aware what you need to give access to. Mm-hmm. As Rainer said, we could set you up very quickly, because the whole cloud setup actually works like a SaaS app for you. And once you have all of that information, we can set you up very quickly for your access to backend desktops, VDIs, and all you would need on the end user side is that Workspace app. That's it. Because then once you have the Workspace app installed, it automatically would install you all the other agents as Rainer showed in the demos. And all you need on the other side is just that connector appliance, which, by the way, just takes 10 minutes to download. So a lot of the chunk of the work that actually happens, and that's why I think 30 minutes is the right answer, is because all the work which is usually done is something we also get into, is which we're helping with the customer understanding what their backend environment should be like, which is a lot of the work that architects do, a lot of the work that sales engineers do, which is helping the customer profile their environment. But once they have that setup done of, okay, these are my backend applications, these are my data centers, this is how my end users are located, the setting up of a cloud environment wouldn't take much time. Go ahead.
Not sure if maybe you touched it earlier, but let's say I'm using CrowdStrike Sentinel-1 on my workstations. Do I need to prep before Citrix agents are being deployed, in a sense of, I don't know, certain exclusions or a dedicated policy, anything like that?
I'm not sure, 100% sure, honestly. I do think usually you don't have to do anything.
Because is your question like my CrowdStrike app might see what the Citrix app is doing and being
Absolutely.
like, what is going on here?
Yes.
You shouldn't be messing around with this connection.
Yeah.
So do you have to make sure that an existing security app isn't seeing what
I mean,
Any exclusions or anything like that?
the agents, the browser.
Okay.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that
you're trying to hijack this browser.
Yes.
What's up with that? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then probably the answer would be yes. Yeah. As I said, I'm not really sure about. Yeah.
You got us on that one.
Yeah.